Hello, everyone. My name is Isam Babu Khan. I'm director at Teachermatic, and we're really excited to welcome you all to the first webinar in our series on AI in education, where we'll be exploring its practical, ethical, and moral implications. We're really happy to have you with us today, and these sessions are brought to you by Teachermatic, our AI teaching platform designed to inform and support educators and leaders like yourselves. Now, I'm so pleased to hand over to our host, Vicky Ligier, a highly respected and leading expert in EdTech consulting. Vicky, floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup, Issam, and welcome everyone. And thank you for joining our webinar on the responsible use of AI in education. And I'm really delighted to be chairing this session on behalf of Teachermatic and to introduce our two guest speakers, James Browning and just as well, Miles Berry, who has just joined in, which I'm delighted about. So this is a 30 minutes session, which will cover key insights. And we'll have 5 minutes at the end for Q&A. So please drop in your questions in the chat and we'll address as many as we can and follow up by email if needed. Now, this is a new webinar series, so we're really excited about future opportunities and webinars, so we'd love to hear your topic ideas. Now, this session is being recorded, and both the recording and our latest AI education guide will be sent to everyone post-session. So let's dive in. Miles and James, can you thank you for being with us today. Could you please briefly introduce yourselves and share your role in supporting the integration of AI in education, and perhaps also mention what your organization's goals are for using AI? Thanks. Who wants to start? Miles?
Okay, I am happy to do so. You can hear me all right.
Yeah, perfect.
Good. I always worry with these technologies, Right. So, hi, I'm Miles Berry. I'm Professor of Computing Education at the University of Roehampton. I used to be a school teacher, which was tremendously good fun. I chair the board of the National Centre for Computing Education as well. So, my role in supporting AI in education. So, first and foremost, it's about the teacher training that I do here at Roehampton. So, our trainees need to be well equipped to be able to make really effective, critical, efficient use of these tools as part of their working lives when they become school teachers. They are also, it would seem, quite interested in using these tools to support their studies. I think my remit is a little bit broader than that because partly through this NCCE work and more generally around computing education, I'm really interested in AI education as well as AI in education. So how can we best prepare the nation's young people for a future in which these technologies play an increasingly important role? And then there's working with teachers and other colleagues in higher education here and abroad about upskilling them, giving them some insight into, yes, how these technologies work, yes, how they can use them well, but also some of the critical questions about, why should we use these? How should we use these in a sensible, ethical sort of way?
Thank you, Miles. James?
Thank you, Vicky, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm James Browning. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Lift Schools. Just very briefly, Lift Schools is a national network of schools, a multi-academy trust of 57 schools and 4,500 staff and 33,000 young people. We're incredibly proud about our mission to make sure that every child has a brilliant education every day. And I think my role in that is best summarized as being the supporting gig. I support the teachers in every way I possibly can through the fantastic people that work in our support services, centrally, regionally, and on the ground, from the physical estate through to the technology that we use every single day. And we've been thinking quite deeply about the use of technology over the last few years. And of course, with the advent of generative AI and different types of AI, we think very deeply about how it can support that mission. And much like Miles, we think about it through a couple of different lenses. We think about how it can support our organization, things like teacher efficiency. It's well known that there are workload challenges in the sector, as well as recruitment and retention challenges. And we see that there's a direct link between the potential of AI and that. We also see that it can benefit the teaching and learning process, personalizing learning, helping to really enhance the learning process. Although I should stress right now that we feel very passionate that the role of the teacher is ever so critical in that, and it's not there to replace but support teachers. And then finally, much like Miles, I'm also interested in AI education, so preparing students for the future, integrating AI into the curriculum and how we think about preparing them on their pathway beyond their time with Lift Schools.
Thank you very much, both of you. My question would be that have you encountered any sort of barriers when you've approached teaching, learning, and assessment with AI? Because you're right, it can make a big difference in terms of retention, recruitment, as well as the learning experience in education. However, how is the culture of an organization playing a part within that perception of AI as an assistant?
I'll happily jump in and be the first to say that we have encountered challenges. I'll call them obstacles rather than barriers, because we're determined to jump over them. And in brief, there are probably three that jump out. The first is around staff confidence. Typically, we don't find that students find challenges with their confidence, but staff confidence, particularly those that have got tried and tested ways of being, successful in their profession over years, getting them into a place where they want to try something new is understandably challenging on occasion. And often, one bad experience can put them off coming back and trying again. So I'm very happy to talk about the mitigations that we've come. In summary, it's about providing really, really kind of deep support rather than kind of one-off CPD and insets with the hope that it kind of lands. The second type of challenge is a more of a social concern around ethics, and when to use and when to not, and how far to go, and that reluctance can sometimes stop people from using it altogether. And the third is an uncomfortable truth, I suppose, and it does link to the very passionate principle we hold of this technology is not here to replace teachers. But despite saying that, and I think it's just a reinforcement that you have to over communicate this, people still have concerns about job displacement. And as an element of, if we lock it and block it, everything's fine. It's worked. We've worked successfully throughout our career. We'll put it away. I mean, the strong argument I put against that is you're fighting a losing battle if you think that containment of AI is a feasible strategy. It's about trying to show that it can be a tool, not a threat. And I do appreciate that's a very live conversation.
Thank you, Jane. 3 points. Yeah, go on, Miles. Sorry.
No, not at all. I think the main concern amongst my colleagues here, Roehampton, is around academic misconduct, is around cheating. That the point of the assignment is never the output from that, is never the actual product. It's the process through which our students go through in order to think and read critically and carefully and extensively about these big ideas for writing their essays or doing their projects. It's not just an education thing. This is across the university. And along comes generative AI. You type in the question, you give a few well-crafted prompts, and it comes and writes your 3,500 words, albeit in a few sections, and takes all of that process out of the way. And you just end up with product there. And thus we end up with higher education, which doesn't actually provide education, or there is a danger that we end up with higher education, which isn't really about education, it's just about producing work, which has never been the point. And we're very, very concerned about the temptation for students to take the easy way out and to not actually do any of the thinking. And you can understand the appeal of that and trying to get that message across that you have to do the work. This is about doing it yourself. And that's an ongoing challenge for us. And And the same, I think, applies down at school level too. And you've got to wonder about the future of non-exam assessment, of where the student is able to go and take the project idea home and work away at that. And that's such a powerful approach to assessment and indeed to learning. But along comes the generative AI. JCQ are very clear about their rules about do not accept work for assessment unless you know that it's the student's own. And how can teachers be sure about that? And persuading students at school level, just as in higher education, that that's not in their long-term interests is a really tough sell, folks, I suspect. I think...
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say the other issue around school level is the terms and conditions do apply. And, the quality tools that are out there are really very, very clear that under 18s, and I think one case under 13s, may not use these things. But we know from our experience with social media how many secondary pupils are only too happy to lie about their age. And that sense of dishonesty right from the start of creating an account so you can get these tools to go off and do all that they do. So educating students at school level about how to use this, it's really hard when legally they're not allowed to use this.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you both mentioned the ethical aspect of AI. So do you have any ethical guidelines that you focus on when training staff and students, perhaps in the use of AI in education? Miles, do you want, or James?
We are quite clear. It falls under our academic misconduct policies that passing off the work of a generative AI as if it were your own is cheating, and cheating carries severe penalties for our students. Over here in teacher education, there's also part 2 of the teacher standards that the public has the right to expect high ethical standards from anybody who's entering the teaching profession. And, somebody who is willing to pretend that they have done this work when in fact the AI hasn't. Is that the sort of person you want teaching your son and daughter? So there's a way of doing this positively, of citing where somebody has copied text from the AI, of acknowledging any support that they get with assignments. And it would be nice to see that, I think, becoming more the norm from school level up, of explaining that actually giving credit where it is due, that some use of this is absolutely fine, other use is not. I think where you draw the ethical line is a really interesting question, because getting the AI to explain something, or getting the AI to look at your work and suggest how it could be improved, or getting the AI to give you ideas for the work seems absolutely fine. Getting the AI to do the work for you, very much not. And I think we would all draw the line there, because the first 3 of those is exactly the sort of help we could expect from a friend, from our parents, from a teacher, from a tutor. Explain this to me, give me some ideas, look over a draft is fine. Do the work for me, definitely not.
Thank you. That's a good point. James, do you want to continue?
Yes, I think we're in danger of just violently agreeing. I mean, that's quite a lot of it, but I completely agree. Just to kind of bring that to life a little bit, one of the first things we did when this, it was clear that the wave was here, so to speak, is introduce what is titled an AI policy, but it's really more of a supportive introduction to AI that we are able to kind of, if you like, kind of insert as a wedge between that and accessing any of these kind of platforms on our systems. And it does provide a kind of really clear lift version of the warning, if you like, but it also directs you towards a very basic AI toolset. So that effectively brings to life some of the examples Miles was giving about using it as a peer reviewer, using it to support you, using it as a tool, but not using it as a crutch. It's not there to prop you up. It's there to absolutely support you in your day-to-day. And one of the key principles in that is owning the input and owning the output. Really making sure that you've got the in and the out. Having it at the table. It's really important to bear that in mind and use of it. And that applies to both children and our staff. I think we typically find that where staff are most nervous actually is in the area of what's safe for me to put in there, and just really emphasizing personalized data is a no-no, being really clear about treating this as if it was a public domain, knowing that in many cases the data is going into training models, making sure that you're anonymizing and just being really vigilant in its use. And it is tricky because if I reel all of that off in one monologue as I have just done, it can sound like we're putting another barrier up, can't it? But it's just so important, I think, because unless you get those guardrails in place, you can quite quickly see how this could start to turn into a bad agent rather than a good agent, and that's it's really important for us to avoid.
Thank you both on this aspect on ethical use of AI in education. Now, James, how can leaders ensure ongoing support and development for staff as AI continues to evolve?
This is an area that, thank you for asking the question, it's an area where we have put a lot of thought to. And for me, it comes to one of the areas that I'm accountable for is our day-to-day IT service, what you historically call your IT service anyway. And by way of background, before I joined the trust sector, I spent 15 years working in IT support and software services for education. And traditionally, that service has aspired to keeping the lights on, for want of a better term. And there's no shame in that. That has been a big focus of technology development over the last 15, 20 years, is solid connectivity, solid foundations, making sure devices are available to all, etc. The great news is we're with a healthy dose of let's make sure it stays this way. We're in a great place in that regard. But the role of IT service is evolving. And the reason that's relevant to answer your question, Vicky, is we see that IT service doesn't remove itself, doesn't make itself redundant. It needs to pivot to now support the use of technology. And so rather than seeing that, for example, we need to put in place some CPD sessions at an inset day and get teachers exposed to various AI tools, we have now a new type of role in our IT service. We call it the Technology Support Officer. And these TSOs, as we call them, are sometimes former educators, former teachers that have got a passion for tech. Sometimes they're technologists that have got a real empathy for education. And their remit is to be in and out classrooms every single day, supporting teachers in those critical moments as they get up and going. And that ranges from people that are low confidence and in some cases, low competence, to be quite open with you, through to people that are really exploring and pushing the edges. Our feeling is if we don't do that, it's the latter that will just start running away, and the former that will really struggle to move forward. So the TSOs are our mitigation to that, providing day in, day out, making CPD an ongoing part of what we do. The only other thing I'll note is we're putting quite a lot of thought to our initial teacher training, and how we can really support the next generation of teachers coming through, who inevitably will have this kind of built into their expectations from the start. And that's quite a different thing to trying to retrain, so to speak. So a really interesting kind of blend. And I do think we'll get to a point pretty soon where our leaders, and forgive me for being generational just for a second, but some of our more mature and experienced leaders will need to look to the younger generation to bring some of this through and flow through the school. And I mean that with all the due respect. But I think there's just a natural reality to that flow and that exposure and that confidence that comes with it.
Thank you, James, for sharing. Miles, as a digital leader, what practical strategies would you recommend for successful implementing of AI in an education setting?
I think much of this is about empowering users, is about trusting teachers, is about professionalism. There's plenty that you can do from the top down, but really these tools are so accessible, and they speak our language quite literally, that it is about giving teachers that time, space, license, if you wish, to explore, to experiment, to play, to try things out. And my view is that teachers are naturally really very good prompt engineers. It's part and parcel of our job, is giving instructions, is specifying what a task should be. That the teachers somehow take to this really very quickly. So becoming very familiar with a particular tool rather than trying them all out and saying, oh, that's better for this and this is better for that. Get good at one tool early on. And 10 hours may be enough of playing around with this and seeing what it can do. Using examples from subject teaching, from school life, from personal life, terms and conditions still apply. What can you do with this? How do you make this even better? So first and foremost, having a go with this, really. And then the second thing I think is about finding the convincing use case. Often when I talk to teachers about this, I think, come with the list of the stuff, the bits of your job that you really don't like doing. And, sometimes that is writing reports, which has issues to it. And sometimes that could be writing test papers. But there is very often in a teacher's life, bits of the job which involve writing that they don't actually very much enjoy doing. And if taking all of the ethical considerations into account, that's something where the AI can actually save some of the teacher's time so they can spend more time with the bits of the job that they love, typically working with young people, inspiring their pupils, passing on their love of their subject, all of that. And that's got to be a good thing. So finding the convincing use case. And then I think it's really important that very early on we acknowledge that the terms and conditions do apply, that ethical safeguards, GDPR, the tendency for these systems to hallucinate, all of that has to be part of the knowledge base with which we approach these. UK government has done a very, very good job of coming up with a really nice regulatory framework that doesn't get in the way of innovation, but should keep us safe and make good use of these tools. And I think a nod in the direction of, actually, this is our framework. When we use these tools, we're transparent about how we use them.
I've got to stop you.
I
I'm
could go on.
really sorry about that. It's very rude to interrupt, but I'm conscious of time.
No, you're doing a good job, Vicky.
We would leave 5 minutes towards the end for Q&A. So do we have any questions?
Yes, we do, Vicky. I'm
Brilliant.
not sure if you can, okay, I'll relay them.
Okay.
All right. So the first question is, how can AI help bridge the gap between schools with access to high-level technology and those in poorer areas or countries who have limited access to computers in their teaching and learning?
Who would like to respond, James?
I'm happy to offer a view. I mean, I think it's all relative. I know worth perhaps noting that many of our lift schools are in the more deprived areas of England, but I know that it is all relative. I think it is fair to say that you need solid foundations. Absolutely, technology provision is pretty critical to accessing that. That's being said, I think one of the major changes in recent years is the advent of cloud technology, and I think the majority, if not all, of the technologies we've referenced are available on fairly low computing specs. The key there, though, is connectivity, whether that be broadband or 5G, 4G, and so that that is a bit of a prerequisite. I think that perhaps worthy of note that we have noted in our relatively deprived areas, the access that we are able to provide to our young people can sometimes be the best access that they have within the family that they then go home to. And that provides a really important link. And that's quite important to us, is that our role doesn't just stop as supporting children. It's the families that they go home to in many cases. And we welcome their use of the technology, obviously within policies, of course. But that can sometimes really help to engage parents, bring up the skill levels that sit around the family as well, and in turn benefit the community as well. I know I've gone a little off tangent there, but I hope it's useful.
Thank you. Yeah, very much.
Briefly on this one, before you move on to the other questions, I think because of the frustrations of the terms and conditions about age limits, we're returning to a position where it's actually one computer shared with the whole class, which is going to be our typical interface to these during lesson time. And a teacher involving the generative AI for the class as a whole group in the lesson is possibly a lower cost way and less demanding on institutional infrastructure than every kid interacting with the AI on their own individual device. I'd also just briefly nod in the direction of Meta's Llama model, which you can download and run locally. So once you've got a good internet connection, grab a copy of it and run it locally on your own machine or on your school network. The guardrails are not as clear on Llama as they are in others. So use with caution. But if internet connectivity is the issue, Llama is worth a look.
Thank you very much on that. Do we have another question?
Yes, we do. So this is a very popular question from educators. What advice do you have for teachers when they are concerned a student's submission is generated by AI, but can't prove it? We are constantly asked by teachers for an AI detection tool.
So the lovely thing about the AI detectors is, or this issue is, the work that a child does in school, the work that my students do at Roehampton is their own intellectual property. So submitting that work to an AI detector when it's the student's own, I can't morally, legally do that without their permission. On the other hand, if it was generated by an AI, then it's not the student's IP, so I can get away with it. I don't know, right? So our broad approach here is to say, if we suspect that they have used the AI, we'll bring them in for a meeting, not offer them a coffee, and ask them to back up their process of coming up with this work. We're returning, I suspect, to more of that sort of viva voce, an interview about the artifact. And at that point, if it's not their work, we kind of hope that they will fess up and say, yeah, fair cop, Gov.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think it is time, so I'm afraid we're going to have to come to a conclusion here.
Oh, wow.
And I would like to thank all of you for attending this webinar today on the responsible use of AI in schools and education. And a huge thank you to Miles and James for taking part and for their very, very valuable insights. We hope that you're leaving with practical takeaways, even if it's quite succinct. But hopefully you will be able to get started on implementing AI responsibly in your organization. And as a reminder, the recording and AI education guide will be sent to you very shortly. And we'd love your feedback on future webinar topics and perhaps the length of the webinar. Should we have it a bit longer, we could definitely have extended the session a bit. And we remain available to you as consultants as well to help you embed AI in your organization. And thanks again. And we look forward to seeing you in future sessions.
Thanks, Vicky.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.